Welcome back to Basecamp's Expert Sessions. I'm Jenna Selmer, one of the co-founders of Basecamp. Expert Sessions are a way for me to democratize my Rolodex and talk to the coolest people in the outdoor industry so you can understand how they got their jobs and what their jobs actually mean. So today I have Jen. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Jen. Who are you and where do you work?
Thank you, Jenna. It's an honor to be here. I love Basecamp. I love what you all do. My name is Jin Ando. My technical title is Executive Communications at Patagonia, but the easiest way to describe it is mostly just focused on brand and impact external communications. So we have a joke within our own team that the product and sport PR team gets to do all the really fun stuff for Patagonia,
Yeah.
and we have to deal with kind of the harder social responsibility, supply chain, all of those kinds of questions too. So it is still fun, but not quite as outward facing as Patagonia may be known for.
It's a little less sexy, if you
Yeah.
will. Yeah, yeah. Those crisis comms. That's fun. Okay, but what was your first job in the outdoor industry?
I was a part-time frontline employee at REI in Columbus, Ohio. That was my,
Not Columbus, Ohio. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of a roundabout way of being in the outdoor industry where I started school, going to journalism, thought my entire 4.5 years, because I had like a victory semester in college,
Okay.
thought I was going to go into journalism as a newspaper or magazine writer. And just by nature of like journalism at the time, going from marketing to newspapers and then leaving the journalism world entirely, I got that job as a cashier at REI, thinking that maybe I'd go back to school and ended up staying there about 6 years. But
6 years.
yeah, going
Okay.
from frontline part-time employee to like basically an assistant store manager, one of the assistant managers there.
Tell me a little bit about that zigzag. Did they just love you and they're like, promote, promote, or did you work at it?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a lot of effort on my part, where I think one of the things for people who have either worked at REI in retail too, like that promotion process of going from part-time to full-time to sales lead to RSM, the retail sales manager, that was one of the hardest things that I have ever done professionally.
Oh, really?
Where, yeah, going from sales lead to RSM specifically with mock interviews and talking with different RSMs, the retail store managers all around the country, and preparing to do this interview. Where when I got a job as in marketing or in a newspaper, like the interviews were nowhere near as intensive as that. So I have a lot of respect
Wild.
for
Is that
folks
like an
that started retail.
is that an REI thing then, or you think that's a retail thing going from that kind of area to more of an HQ area?
I think it is an REI thing, but from what I understand, it happens a lot, I think, throughout the outdoor industry, just because the retail part of it relies on so much because there's back and forth, and the expertise has to be there because it's also you have to know the product, you have to know specs and prices and all of that. At the same time, you also have to manage people. And so like
Yeah.
having those kind of dual mindsets firing all at once is you have to be trained to be able to do that for sure.
So was there anything that happened in those interviews that you can remember that did set you apart, or like little tips you could give somebody?
Um, I think it is getting as honest with yourself as possible. Um, I and I guess to put a finer point on it, there was one piece of feedback I had gotten, which I still remember to this day. This was like 10 fucking years ago,
Yeah.
where the person said that he relies too much on humor in order to convey things. And I was like, you son of a bitch, you don't know me at all. And then a few months later, I'm like, God damn it, he was right. So
The
it is, yeah,
introspection, I've found that
yeah.
like if something makes me want to be like defensive and fight somebody, I need to sit with that for a minute because that is probably true.
Yeah. Right. And then like trying to joke my way out of it too. It's like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
proving it anyway. It's like, man, that was so brutal. Um,
So
but
have
yeah,
people around you that will tell you what's up and listen to them is kind of what I'm hearing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
honestly, it's one of those weird kind of things where I still don't really know who gave me that feedback, which was part of the process where it was anonymized. You go
Mhm.
through the entire process of the mock interviews and you just get delivered all at once. And so I don't know if it was somebody who really didn't care for me or somebody who was really looking out for me. And that honestly kind of makes
Yeah,
it all the more effective, I
a
think.
100%. Okay, that's juicy. So then with Patagonia, tell me how you landed that role. Did somebody help you with that transition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were, I think, a lot of people who took a chance on me because I
Okay.
joined the communications team at Patagonia about half a year before after I started at the company, period. Because it was like the same
Okay.
kind of similar arc to what I did at REI, where I left REI as an assistant manager and joined the Patagonia as a customer experience rep. So if
Okay.
you're calling like the 800 number
Yep.
at 4 o'clock Eastern time, there's a high possibility it would have been me. Um, Maybe
Okay.
not high, but there was. But I had that background where I went to school for journalism. I spent a few years in marketing, was an editor, a digital editor at a newspaper, and had spent the last 6 or so years at REI. And there was a chance for me to kind of fill in as like this part-time temp member of the PR and communications team at Patagonia. And I ended up getting it, I think, by luck, but also just by having that really random assortment of professional experience. Like when I was leaving REI at that point and going to Patagonia, I was like, was the first 8 or so years or however many years that I spent after college just a complete waste of time. That's kind of the way that I felt.
Yeah.
And whenever I looked at my diploma, I was like, I'm just gonna throw that thing in the trash. Because it was like this festering uh resentment
Reminder.
toward it. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, if anybody's watching this that went to journalism school, I will say that it was worth it and it helped me get to where I am today. But
Yeah.
um going back to where I was at that point, like I had no idea that that experience that I had could all culminate into something else because I had thought that they were all just disparate pieces where I would spend a few years talking about like mops and engine oil and marketing, and then, writing about breaking news and editing news stories, and then learning thousands of SKUs at REI, and then going into customer experience at Patagonia. Like on its face, on the paper, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But then when this position opened up on this team, this very singular team, I think at a very singular company, it all matched up really well. And I will, I think, for the rest of my life, be indebted to, can I name names here? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Eric Hollister Williams, Corley Kenna, JJ Huggins, Tessa Byers, Corey Simpson, and Vincent Stanley, all members of the Patagonia team that, I had no real place to get interviewed in that process just because again like I'd been there for 5 or 6 months at that point. And the one thing about I think Patagonia and probably the outdoor industry as a whole, there are a lot of fucking talented, really educated, really
So
like
many
out there
skilled people.
people
Yep.
in
Hmm.
any single role. And so to have
Hmm.
gotten chosen for that is just it blows my mind to this day. And I'm almost passing, I think this September is going to be 5 years with Patagonia too. And I still think about that shit every day.
Okay, so let me peel this back a little bit. So you had the experience at REI and you knew that you were good. You knew the codes and the cues of the outdoor industry customer. That's number one that retail gives you that I want to,
Hmm.
make sure people understand. That's why
Yep.
so many people get entry level there. And then you had that management experience and that people management. So Patagonia could trust that you would represent their brand well with the customer. Really important. You had been a store manager. And so that CX role was really like your experience was
Hmm.
well tended. So you kind of got that job based on your merit, your pieced together merit, you're
Yeah.
saying. And then you just impressed all of those people while you were in that role? That's why they stood up for you, or like they saw something? What did that group of people do?
Yeah. So I think it was just me being the the eager gopher and writing to as many people within the company to see if there was anything else that I could do.
Okay.
And yeah, this was coming off the tail end of the shutdown as well. So the COVID shutdown. So
Oh my
there,
God, I forgot about COVID. Yeah,
right. Still,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so it was still kind of just like nobody really knew what the outdoor industry was because during that time, like probably from what was it, like July 2020 through when I got hired on in September 2021, like it was insane at REI. I think pretty much at any REI in the country and any outdoor industry retail location in the country, just because everybody was doing stuff out there. And
yeah.
so just through that kind of busyness, um, I just started volunteering for doing as much as possible in my role in CX, even like going so far as to writing emails to Ryan, our CEO.
Okay.
Not to be like that guy, but also as a way to kind of test my assumptions about this company overall too, where, I had these very high standards and very high ideals of what Patagonia is, just by the way that when I was an outsider, the way that it portrayed itself and the way that people talked about it. And when I got in, I started to just kind of poke around a little bit to see if it was true. And even though I am like paid to say, like to be the hype man for the company,
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, even going into 5 years now, I still think it's true. And it's my own experience, of course, and everybody has their own experience with the company, and there are some days are harder than others, but on the whole, I think everybody is as genuine as I thought they were going to be.
Okay, wild. All right, so you also did something really important. I'm gonna sum this up as open mouths get fed.
Hmm.
And you communicated that you wanted more. You showed up as well, it sounds like you showed that you could do stuff. You managed up. And that's one of the things that I tell folks, like people when they're hiring want someone who manages up. They're not going to explicitly say that. They also
Yeah.
want someone that can write a good email on behalf of them. Those are the two main things that you should show without being asked to show. And so it sounds like you were doing that and you were just like making sure that you were top of mind for people and they knew what you could do. You were communicating your value and you were just like always there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I left the journalism industry, I at that point had kind of made a vow to myself that I am not, unless it's like super dangerous or life-threatening or stupid, like, I was not going to question my instinct when it came to job stuff. And so I
Yes.
did end up getting that a
Cool.
position as a cashier at REI and spent a long time talking to people, even though I'm probably the most introverted person I've ever met in my life. But it still gave me those skills, but also challenging myself without the self-doubt and just saying, just fucking go for it every single time. I think that honestly is a lot of the reason why I am where I am, because otherwise I never would have taken the risk of applying for the temp position on the comms team. I never would have went so far as to do all of the assignments and the interviews and try to be as buttoned up as possible for all of that stuff because I have like just myself as a person have so much of that self-criticism that can start creeping in.
Yeah,
But I think making the decision early on and just saying like, no, that shit is getting turned off and we're just going to go for it. I think it helped a ton because it
I think so.
obviously it still exists, but it becomes the default now to just go for it.
I do a lot of audacity coaching with people, and it kind of mirrors what you're saying. I too am like very introverted, had a lot of anxiety growing up.
Yeah.
Cashier thing you describe, I think, is like rejection therapy. And a lot of people don't understand that, like being charismatic and networking and all that, that's a muscle. You have to grow that. The people aren't just like know how to do stuff.
Yeah.
I have anxiety every time I step in a room still, but I'm like, no, I've got this. And I want like I'm ready for this. I'm worthy and I'm ready. I have to give myself a little pep talk each
Yeah.
time. And I've practiced enough to be able to take that deep breath and then know it will be okay. But you set yourself up by saying, I want this and I'm going to practice it instead of just
Yeah.
assuming you would be good at it right away. And I think that's killer right there too.
Yeah.
So I wanted to call that out. I'm not going to ask you which your favorite company has been so far. I think that would be pretty rude. But I will ask you if you think that people of color should be doing anything differently to try to navigate this industry.
Um, I've thought about that a lot, just and it's different now because I think the team I'm on is super diverse too. But what came to me when I was thinking about it was this idea of like it's about advocating for one another and then also giving positive reinforcement in showing when things are going right with allies of people or people who aren't people of color. Like to me, I have my own experiences and I don't necessarily want to speak for whether like what I did could work in any other situation, for instance, or if what I did, if I would have had a similar experience to somebody who is indigenous too, or if they were applying at another company that might not be quite as diverse as Patagonia is too. So I do think, though, reaching out outside of even each of the companies and just trying to find and meet and talk with people in the industry who are people of color as much as you can is a huge help because if anything, it helps you gain a better perspective of how things are just across the industry.
Yeah.
Or similarly, like if there are any companies that are really doing it right,
Yeah.
internally because I feel like that is kind of where a lot of it starts, where, there's it could be super cool that so and so XYZ company now like their campaign now shows an Asian dude in a tent instead of a white guy. Like
Yeah.
I'll feel seen a little bit,
Yeah.
but if none of that stuff is changing internally, it doesn't matter. It's marketing.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out, like doing research as well and seeing if other companies have things like employee resource groups or just employee groups in general, where those groups actually have a say in the way that the company is being run or how policies change, or there are considerations that those groups can get brought into. Like that, I think is a huge thing. I don't know if like what change will look like overall. But I will say that there are people, not even just within Patagonia, but I think in the outdoor industry that are making that change. And it's kind of small, but it's going from outside or inside out, but also from outside in. And it's going to meet in the middle somewhere. And it's going to be gradual, I think. And there are going to be some moments of reckoning for some brands. I honestly believe that. But it may be so gradual that we don't even realize it until what's depicted in the outdoor industry is exactly what real life looks like, and you might not even notice the shift because it may be so gradual, but I do think that it's coming. And I do think a lot of it will have to do with people of color within the industry finding one another and being able to network and talk to one another and using that almost as a catalyst for industry-wide change rather than going from company to company.
Yeah.
Um, but representation, I think also the Asian dude in the tent, that's still helpful.
It's good. I mean, yeah, and I would extrapolate your answer to any intersectionality or community or any person. I don't care what race or age or ability
Yeah,
you are. Anyone that feels like they don't belong, whatever reason you feel like you don't belong, find someone like that in a company and start talking to them. And just like you said, see if they feel valued, see if they,
yeah,
see what that company is like, because it's going to change, honestly, company to company. It's not an industry thing. And it's probably going to change manager to manager. So that's
yeah,
something also to think about. I like to tell people maybe you should be looking for a manager you want to work for, not necessarily even a company, because that's going to impact your day
yeah,
to day quite a bit. You can get your dream job and then one person sucks and it's not a dream anymore. So
yeah.
lots of ways to look at this.
Yeah. And I think it's also a wake up call it was for me at least, going from Ohio to Southern California,
Oh, I bet.
like you think about it and it makes total sense. You know, Central
Yeah.
Ohio versus Southern California, who you would see out on the trails, but just thinking about being outside even in general and the people that my daughter is seeing recreating and climbing outside or running on the trails and stuff, like it's completely
Right.
different, you
Right.
know. Um, and that's not to say that there's anything we should do about geography, but it can be a big, big thing when it comes to how diverse or possibly how accepting or
Yeah.
all of it put together, depending on where the company, business, the manager's from, even how they talk to people of color for sure.
All anyone wants is to be part of community and feel included.
Yeah,
So until we all realize that, or the companies that do realize that are winning, and I hope we'll continue to win.
yeah.
I want to hop into your job because it's a wild job, like executive comms. What is a random Tuesday like for you?
It'll normally start with checking my phone to make sure that there's no high urgency emails in
Is that
there.
every day? Every day you have to be like a stressful check of
Oh,
your phone.
I would check for
Oh
sure.
dear. Okay.
Because sometimes it isn't necessarily even about Patagonia in general, but you know, we have so many stakeholders, whether it's our supply chain partners, the communities, our retail locations, our employees around the world, that it's worth checking overall because every now and then, like, we have to be the ones to make the connection of how this could affect the company, how it could affect our employees, etc. And it isn't even necessarily about like, is Ryan Geller going to say something about this? But it is mostly like our team is the one kind of looking at broader news issues, that kind of thing, and flagging whether or not there could be something happening here or there could be something we need to be watching for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Um, from there, I will also just take a look at press mentions, talk to the social media team, and then it's kind of roll the dice at that point. Recently, a lot of it has been looking at researching and kind of helping shape some of the communications we have about public lands or fish farms or any of the other fucking tragedies happening in the US around the world right now, too.
All the tragedies.
Yeah.
And how do
And
you
so,
solve it for everything, right? And like being like picking and choosing correctly as well, because you can't say yes to everything. I'm sure
right.
that's hard.
Yeah. And I think one thing that some folks might not think about is, I mean, Patagonia as a company is very much environmental conservation focused.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people do expect Patagonia to say something about a lot of things in just in general going on in the world, which I think is fair. But overall, I mean, our calculus has a lot to do with who it's affecting and where the messaging is going, where it can be most effective. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times, well, not even a lot, I would say most of the time, if not 100%, when we decide to start thinking about even engaging with an issue, it starts with internal. And so even though I am external communications, I kind of have my um, both feet in internal and external because I'm thinking about how we communicate things internally to our employees and externally to the public too. Um, and it just takes a lot of writing, a lot of kind of thought collecting and research and sharpening messages until it actually makes sense because so much of this stuff is nuanced and complicated. And running it by the people that need to see it, whether it's like my bosses or legal, people, culture and justice, justice and belonging team, or whoever it is. But it is kind of like my job is almost any Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's kind of looking at whatever the issues of the day are.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's been a, I make the joke that I'm kind of more caught up and more of a news junkie in this position I'm in than even when I was working at a newspaper.
Yeah, you sound like a geopolitical analyst or like a sociologist or something like that. Seriously, I don't know what anyone's job is. That's what I'm like gleaning from these interview sessions. Is like I don't know
Yeah,
what people do, and this is not what I thought you were going to say.
yeah. And I mean, in terms of my output, we'll say, it is mostly just all written word stuff.
Yeah.
I spend probably about 80% of my day, if not more, in a Word document. And honestly, just even since I was a little kid, like that's all I ever wanted to do. I just wanted to be a writer for as long as I remembered. And if I can write about stuff that could possibly make a difference or help Yvonne, Ryan, Jenna, whoever it is, create some kind of messaging that can mobilize and animate people, like that's a hell of a job. Like instead of yeah, like looking at myself in the mirror at 7 in the morning every day, like what the fuck are we doing today?
Yeah.
Now it's
Just
like holy
breathing.
shit, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're in there, I'm just curious, like, does it just flow and you're just like, I'm a writer and I'm writing, or do you ever get stuck on that paper?
It can be really tough. I think depending also on who I'm helping with the writing, I would say just because I do it more frequently than others, like if I'm helping brief or prepare Ryan for something, it's a lot easier just because we have a little bit more of a rapport. But when it comes to writing something almost for like the brand, we'll
Yeah.
say, like big Mother Patagonia, that shit is scary. Like
You're not gonna get
if
that perfect. It's gonna get torn
yeah,
apart.
yeah.
A lot of people are gonna read it. Uh-huh.
And even if it is grammatically sound, the proof points are there, the message is clear, we don't stray apart from anything. Like with the way things are nowadays, as soon as you mention anything emphatic or definitive about any issue at all, that shit just goes south so fast. And
Yeah.
that's not wrong to, of course, people have opinions, but it's just it can be kind of sad when people don't read into things with a little bit more curiosity and a little bit more open-mindedness to see things in another way.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you media diet, journalism stuff, pattern making, um, sociology, understanding the brand voice and maybe even an individual's voice, like
Yeah.
Ryan's voice. These are all super important skills all the time. What am I missing? Like if you were hiring your replacement, what are like the top skills you would be looking for on their resume?
I think nowadays, at least, and it's something we're running into, is somebody that has almost like a 50-50 blend or can move in between traditional and social media very
Nice.
easily.
Yeah.
Um, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but at Patagonia, at least our team is just, it's not earned media, social media, traditional media. We're just the media team because we have myself, my manager, and then two other of my teammates work specifically on social media. And that's by design so that we're looking at all media as kind of the same thing almost because the folks who are looking at social media can flag whether an issue is going to come up. And then for me, we can start looking at earned media to see when media might be asking about this, if a journalist is going to write in about something, etc. Or if an issue is coming up in social media and stays contained in social media, that can still precipitate like crisis communications, we'll say in quotes, because our community is so passionate and so important that even if like the New York Times doesn't cover it, it can still be really harmful unless we have to correct the facts on something or clarify other things too, where it's just like our employees and our community are our biggest constituencies. And so, if we fuck up by them, it's worse almost by than if we were to in the mainstream media, I guess we'll call it.
What do you call this? Like, is this community, like, is this understanding your community? What is this skill
Hmm.
called?
Yeah, it's I think it's just a blended form of communication in terms of like treating social media and traditional PR as almost the same discipline in terms of listening. Reporting, of course, is part of it too, but also like recognition of trends and other things like that. Because I would say if a
Yeah.
person has that perfect, not perfect, but equal balance, we'll say, they can apply the skills to both sides of it, where it's like, how do you respond to a journalist? You use kind of the same thought patterns almost as if you were responding to a member of the community who's engaging in a legitimate, respectful way, not just like
Right.
trolling you on Instagram,
Right.
but
Yeah.
um, but also, we've had times where we respond to people via social media on a in a one-on-one basis if they have questions about us that are like beyond product, if they're about social responsibility in our supply chain. We for people who do ask genuine questions, we'll write something back to them and get them like we'll talk to our social responsibility head, and then get the answers and send them out. So for some of those questions, we're treating them exactly as we would as a reporter for a story if they're a member of our community, which I think is the
Okay.
one of the coolest things that even like the fact that people would say yes to spending time to doing that, I
Yeah.
think that's pretty damn cool.
I think so too. And I think that's what you're basically on the front lines of community then too.
Yeah.
That's part of your job is that's very rare to get a response back. But man, is it cool. I bet you people are
Yeah.
like, wow, they responded. And they'll never stop thinking about that.
Yeah.
So that's really neat. Are you trying to up level any skills right now?
I am with my fossilized brain trying my best to understand like it is now answer engine optimization too. So
Yes,
it's
it
like
is.
AI,
Yes, it
uh,
is. Yep.
where people aren't Googling things anymore. I'm going to sound so fucking old when we talk
Well,
about this,
maybe, but
but
I like to reference Ask Jeeves. So, you
yes,
know.
my Angel Fire website I made. Yes. But it is, yeah, like when we're thinking about the company and setting facts straight and references and what people are using to get information about Patagonia, there's a lot of people just using ChatGPT and other of those like AI LLMs and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away. So we're thinking about now how we show up in AI, how we make sure that all of that stuff stays accurate, and how we can kind of stay ahead when it comes to whatever's coming next as it relates to the comms part of it too. Because there's some like egregious AI hallucinations out there, especially if you start asking it specific questions too. And it is more or less like very strict brand reputation protection when we do that kind of stuff. But it's also like people are going to use AI whether we want them to or not. And it would be nice if someday when somebody writes an entire textbook through AI and mentions us, that all the shit in there is right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be nefarious. It can just be stupidity
Yeah.
also. And it doesn't really make a difference which one it is. If it's wrong, you still have to combat it. So, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of folks in the Basecamp community are very opposed to AI, and I value why they are. And I also have to say, you're going to get left behind if you don't at least understand what's
Yeah.
happening. And sure, we need to stay human, but we need to still not just put our heads in the sand about this because it's not going away,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. I've kind of started evolving my thinking about it of going from straight like ardent opposition into settling into the idea that it could just become similar to like a calculator, where I'm
Improve
sure
your system.
when the calculator came out, people were like, this is going to change the world. And like
Yeah.
it did
Yeah.
for sure, but it's become a tool now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like the data center shit is super scary to me,
Yeah.
but like you said, like it's here to stay. And if anything, we at least need to know more about it. If we don't use it, if the only thing we do use it for is the most basic of things. But Yeah, that I think was one of the first things since like this is gonna make me sound really old. Like since the internet, that really is just like mind blowing, you know.
It is mind
Um,
blowing. Shirley from Yeti had the same answer as you, by the way, with AI
yeah,
being like, how should I be using it? What is it doing? And could I be doing my job better and helping more people and
yeah,
remaining in doing the human things that do make a difference? How do I keep most of my time there? Is
yeah.
pretty much what we agreed on. So, last question, I think, is if somebody wants to get a job at Patagonia, what should they do? Any tips? Because everybody wants, by the way, to get a job at Patagonia.
Yeah. Understood. I mean, to be fair, even though it only took like a single interview to get the CX job, I mean, I had been looking at working for Patagonia for years
Yeah.
before, and there are a lot of people who are in the same position or were in the same position. But I do think that since there is so much demand for any one of those open positions, you do have to have the technical skills for sure. I think that's you can't
At
just
a minimum.
get by on vibes, you know?
Yeah.
I
Can't
wish you
charisma your
could.
way in. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
But that like you do have to be buttoned up in terms of the technical part of it for sure. But if you get to the point when an interview happens, like you just have to show up as yourself. And if you don't have you have to fake kind of having the passion, then I don't know if this place is going to be right. Because like I do think that Patagonia is a really, really welcoming place. And I think I've written this a couple times before where we're like a flock of black sheep, where all of us are kind of different in our own way. And we would be the weirdos in any other company, but together we can be weirdos together, you know? But at the same time, you know, we work our asses off all the time. And so if that passion isn't there, it can be really hard, I think, especially like on the comms team or the product team or one where you're kind of constantly going 100 miles an hour at all
Yeah.
times. I sat in on an interview with our director of photography, Heidi, the other day, and she had said it in a way where, like, because she cares about the mission and because she knows what she's doing isn't going to be wasted, she's never resentful of working long hours. And I was like, that is the most accurate way I've ever heard anyone explain it before, where it's yes, there are going to be like 13-hour days sometimes, but then there's also going to be the days when during lunch you just fuck off and run 5 miles and maybe take a long lunch right after. And it all kind of balances each other out, but you know that it's going towards something you believe. And it doesn't have to be Patagonia, of course, but at least at Patagonia, the people I feel like that I've seen really excel, or at least are able to maintain momentum for as long as I've been around and known a lot of people, are the people who use that sort of passion as a source of energy because that kind of never really dies, you know, where I think it is super important to get rest, whether it's an athletic pursuits or for work too. But in terms of passion for your job, um, I mean, I do love vacations. I love spending time with my family. I want to be completely clear about that. But I also just like I can't wait to get back to doing what I do, you know. Um, and that's the big one, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And if there were two people who had the exact same skills and the
Thank
exact same experience, and if I was sitting in on the interview and it was a person that in their own way, it doesn't even have to be like the in your face David Goggins kind of charisma, like in their own way showed passion, like that would be the person I would choose 100% of the time.
And you also said authenticity. Like if you knew that you were getting what you were going to get all the time, I think that's something that is an undervalued interview thing too. Because sometimes I'll interview them, I'm like, that was awesome. And then they won't be like that in the real world or like the rest of the
Yeah.
time. And so if I believe that you're coming forward with who you're going to be and I like it, oh, that's great too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah,
alignment though, because I agree with you. Like I work a ton on Basecamp, but every second it's my company. I feel privileged every second and it gives me
yeah,
energy. And like just in the same way
yeah,
exercise gives me energy. And if I'm doing something that I'm bored at, I could be doing it for 1 hour and be so tired and Basecamp for 10 hours and be so jazzed.
yeah,
So yeah, somehow people need to communicate that they have that for Patagonia in their application and let that shine through and not say,
yeah,
like, I'll work overtime, but like, this is what I want to be doing and I want to be doing it for you. I have these skills. I can prove that I can perform them. And also, here's why I want to perform them for Patagonia
yeah,
specifically. That's kind of what might get the interview over someone else.
yeah. I think so. Because at the end, I mean, Yvonne is still on campus all the time,
Yeah, right.
and it's
Okay.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and it's still like every single worker that we have throughout HQ, retail, distribution center, our reps, everyone around the world is still, at least on last count, was fewer than 4,000 people. And so it still is kind of have almost like a familial
Yeah.
feeling to it, like a small, as weird as it is to say, like a to call Yvonne a mom and pop, like Yvonne and Melinda mom and pop is weird, but it has that sort of feeling to me
Yeah.
at least. And so having connections as well. I mean, I'm always open. I try to get back to people if I have the time. So an open invitation to to try and connect. And I try to answer as many questions as I can because I do wish that I had that when I before I started here. If anything, just as proof or somebody to be like, I may have drinking a gallon of the Kool-Aid per se, but it still is real. It feels real to me. So it's
Yeah.
not just like you're getting the bait and switch if you get the job, and it's like, aha, now you're in a cubicle. Like, no, that's not really how it goes.
Well, you got to hydrate, so it might as well be Kool-Aid sometimes, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
Jen, is there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you a question about?
This is very specific for Patagonia and is going to sound kind of eerie, I think, but in my it's a hell of a way to start this sentence,
What will, yeah.
but I will say I have met more than a few people at this company who, similar to me, have felt like they were called to join Patagonia in some way, whether it's like the culture, the products, the kind of mentality in terms of the responsible business aspect of it too. There are people who spend years trying to get into the company. And I think if it's something where it's like, what is the thing about a tattoo? Where it's like, if you still want it in 6 months, then you should probably get it. I might put it maybe at a year or so, but if like all of that stuff stays true at Patagonia, like there are ways to work toward it. And for a lot of people, myself included, like it may take years, but you'll get there for sure. This place is like this place is super special. And I think that is if people feel that pull, that kind of inexplainable pull in some way or another, um, they do find their way here somehow. It's interesting. It is a kind of a mysterious gravity that pulls people in, but they do show up.
That's perfect. If you want to work at Patagonia and you apply once and you don't get in, someone else is going to apply until they do get in. And so
Yeah.
that's the difference. That's the people that get in work until they do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I think as long as you have some even loose connection to the role, if although I did say a little bit ago that you have to have your technical expertise there, I
Dial up
still
your
think it's
skills.
worth, yeah, it's still
Yeah,
worth applying. If
absolutely.
anything, the recruiters will start to see your name and then you just reach out to me and then I tell the recruiters, hey, this person's applied a few times. You probably remember them and we can go from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's not a game. Applying for jobs is not a game, but there's
Right.
definitely ways to gamify it, if you
Yeah.
will. And be honest though, like look at those job descriptions and if there's a delta between your skills and what they're looking for, figure out a way to close that delta.
Yeah.
But keep working at it and maybe describe in your application what you're doing to do that. And maybe say, well, I don't have this, but I come with all of these bonus features that maybe would enrich the role, you know?
Yeah,
So, yes, you're special, you have something to offer, communicate that well, and keep communicating it well, even if it doesn't land right the first time.
agreed.
Love it.
100%.
Amazing. Well, Jen, I'm looking forward to our Ask Me Anything session. I think a lot of community members are too. I've already gotten requests for the sign up page, so I can't wait to talk to you a little bit more with the community present. They can ask their questions to you face to face. This was lovely. Thank you for being very real. Thank you for swearing. I think it was a very chill session. I liked it a lot. And yeah, we will talk soon.
All right, that's great. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Jen. I appreciate you. Appreciate everything Basecamp does. It's great to be here.